The ocean is never still. Even in the calmest moments, a subtle rhythm hums beneath the surface, an ancient heartbeat that predates our memory. Waves lap against the unseen edges of continents that no longer exist, tides carrying whispers of civilizations swallowed long ago. Imagine, just for a moment, that somewhere deep beneath the vast, rolling waters lies a world forgotten by history, a place of wonders that surpass the imagination of even the most advanced societies of antiquity. Atlantis. The name itself evokes a mixture of awe, skepticism, and longing, a land of perfection lost to the relentless embrace of the sea. For centuries, it has been dismissed as myth, a cautionary tale told by philosophers and poets. Yet scattered fragments of evidence, curious artifacts, and the eerie consistency of legends across cultures suggest that Atlantis may have once been real, and more intriguingly, that its people did not vanish entirely. It is said that those who survived the cataclysm did not simply disperse into obscurity. Some speak of 12 royal houses that escaped the ocean's fury, carrying with them secrets, knowledge, and perhaps bloodlines that endured through the ages. These were not ordinary survivors. They were guardians of a heritage older than the earliest dynasties, navigators of both sea and star, keepers of wisdom lost to the mainstream annals of history. And though their cities sank beneath the waves, their influence rippled outward, shaping civilizations, guiding empires, and quietly weaving themselves into the fabric of our world. Picture the aftermath. The horizon filled with smoke and fire as the earth trembled and oceans surged. Great towers and temples, carved from stone that reflected the sun like molten gold, collapsed in moments, swallowed by the relentless tide. The survivors fled in vessels designed not merely for travel, but for preservation, ships that carried not only people, but memory, knowledge, and bloodlines destined to seed the future. Some say these vessels sailed across the Mediterranean. Others claim the survivors reached the distant islands of the Atlantic, and some legends hint at crossings even farther into lands that would one day be known as the Americas. The imagery is at once terrifying and sublime, a kingdom undone yet alive in the veins of its descendants. But how do we recognize them today? The clues are subtle, hidden in plain sight, woven into myths, symbols, and the rituals of secret societies. Consider the trident, a simple, three-pronged emblem, repeated in art, heraldry, and ceremonial object from cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Or the spiral, a pattern appearing in architecture, textiles, and carvings, often dismissed as decorative, but possibly a coded remnant of Atlantean knowledge. And then there are the legends themselves. Flood myths, stories of sunken cities, tales of heroes emerging from the depths. They are not isolated stories, but echoes of a shared memory, resonating across continents and centuries. Even science, when we dare to look, provides tantalizing hints. Sonar surveys reveal submerged structures along continental shelves, stone formations that bear the unmistakable mark of human design. Ice core data and geological studies suggest sudden floods and cataclysmic events that coincide, surprisingly, with timelines preserved in ancient texts. While mainstream history regards these as coincidences or misinterpretations, the pattern is difficult to ignore. Somewhere beneath these waves lies evidence, perhaps untouched and waiting, of a civilization whose sophistication challenges everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. And yet, there's an aura of secrecy that surrounds these ideas. For centuries, knowledge of Atlantis and its supposed survivors was suppressed or dismissed, relegated to the realm of fantasy. Perhaps it is human nature to fear the implications of a lost civilization whose influence may still linger today. For if these royal descendants truly exist, living quietly among us or hidden behind the veil of nobility and ancient orders, their legacy might be encoded in ways we're only beginning to understand, through myths, through art, through genetics, and perhaps through the subtle pull of memory itself. Tonight, as you listen to the rhythm of waves and the distant echo of winds over a forgotten shore, consider this. Atlantis is not merely a story. It is a question, a puzzle, a mystery that may reach far deeper than we dare to imagine. And at the heart of it lies the possibility that the royal descendants of the deep are still with us, guardians of a hidden history that the world has yet to fully acknowledge. Their story waits quietly beneath the ocean, inviting those who will listen to dive into its depths and uncover secrets that have been whispered for millennia. Long before the age of empires, before the rise of Greece and Rome, there was a time when the world was still young and its memory fresh. In the cradle of civilization, where the Nile bends to the Mediterranean, the ancient Egyptians guarded their secrets closely, and among those secrets were stories of a land that existed long before their own. An island, a kingdom, a city that touched the heavens and then vanished beneath the waves. This was the world Plato spoke of. But Plato was no mere storyteller. He was a philosopher, a man who understood the power of allegory, the weight of symbolism, and the layers that lay beneath the surface of written words. When he first mentioned Atlantis in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, the story was not one of simple myth. It was a warning, a cautionary tale. But a tale of what exactly? Plato, in his works, claimed to have learned of Atlantis from an ancient Egyptian priest during his travels to the land of the pharaohs. The priest, speaking to Plato's ancestor Solon, spoke of a great and powerful civilization that existed 9,000 years before their time, an island of unmatched beauty and technological advancement. The island, they said, was larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, a paradise of wealth, wisdom, and innovation. But for all its grandeur, Atlantis fell in a single cataclysmic day and night. A series of natural disasters. The earth trembled, the seas swelled, and the very land of Atlantis was swallowed by the ocean. It was, according to the priest, a tragedy not just of loss, but of moral decay, for the Atlanteans had once been a noble race, but their power and influence had corrupted them. They became greedy, arrogant, and, in the end, their empire was wiped from the face of the earth. At least, this is the story Plato told. But his words were not intended simply to entertain. They were meant to convey a deeper, hidden truth. Plato's Atlantis was a mirror, a reflection of the fall of civilizations, the price of hubris, and the consequences of moral decline. But what if, hidden within his allegory, there is more than just a philosophical lesson? What if Plato was not simply recounting a fable, but encoding a deeper truth, one that would be misunderstood for millennia? Could there have been, hidden beneath the layers of myth and allegory, a genuine historical memory of a lost civilization? Consider the context of Plato's story. He was writing at a time when Greek philosophy was at its peak, and he was deeply involved in the philosophical traditions of Egypt. Egypt, with its ancient priesthood and deep knowledge of the cosmos, had long preserved secrets of the past. Many scholars believe that Plato himself had undergone training in Egypt, where the priests of Sais, the temple of knowledge, would have imparted their wisdom. In these sacred halls, it is possible that the priesthood had preserved the memory of Atlantis, not as a myth, but as a true story of a real civilization. The Egyptians, after all, were no strangers to preserving ancient histories. They recorded the rise and fall of kings, the stories of gods, and the epic struggles of their people. But they also understood the delicate balance between truth and myth, between what could be revealed and what needed to remain hidden. It is conceivable that the priests of Sais, who spoke to Solon and Plato, shared with them a version of Atlantis that was based on real historical events, events that occurred long before Egypt's recorded history. They may have recognized in Atlantis not just a tale of destruction, but a story of the great flood that had shaped the earth, an event that echoed through many cultures, from the Bible to the myths of the Mesopotamians. In Plato's dialogue, the priest of Sais tells Solon that the story of Atlantis was passed down through the ages, that had been recorded by ancient Egyptian priests who had long kept the knowledge of the lost city. These priests also spoke of the wisdom of the Atlanteans, their mastery of engineering, their knowledge of the stars, and their ability to control nature in ways that were beyond the understanding of their contemporaries. These claims, when examined through the lens of history, begin to resonate with the same mysteries that we associate with advanced ancient civilizations today. The question that arises from this story is not just about the fate of Atlantis, but about its legacy. Plato speaks of an island that vanished, but he also speaks of the survivors. What happened to those who escaped the cataclysm? Where did they go? What knowledge did they carry with them? And more importantly, what if the survivors of Atlantis did not simply disappear, but instead became the foundation of later civilizations? What if the knowledge of Atlantis was not lost, but hidden, passed down through secret societies, encoded in symbols and rituals that persist to this day? As we dig deeper into Plato's text, we begin to realize that he may have been trying to tell us something far more profound than the simple tale of a lost civilization. Atlantis, in his telling, is not just a cautionary fable. It is the kernel of a much larger story, one that spans time and space, one that stretches from the distant past into the heart of the present. Could it be that the story of Atlantis is not the story of an isolated, vanished empire, but rather the story of a forgotten world whose influence still reaches into the modern age? There is, of course, the possibility that Plato's writings were purely allegorical, a parable designed to teach lessons about morality, power, and corruption. But as we explore further, we must ask ourselves, what if Plato, like many ancient philosophers, was using allegory to hide the truth? What if the tale of Atlantis is a key to understanding a forgotten past, a past that still has much to teach us about our present and future? The idea of Atlantis as a real, historical place is not something confined solely to the musings of philosophers and dreamers. It is a theory that has been revisited time and again by scholars, archaeologists, and adventurers throughout the centuries. From the 16th century to today, the search for Atlantis has persisted, fueled by the belief that beneath the layers of myth, there is a real place, a real civilization, and a real story waiting to be uncovered. So, when we hear the name Atlantis, we must ask ourselves, is it merely a story, or could it be the echo of a forgotten world that continues to call out to us from the depths of time? In the quiet corners of ancient Egypt, where the sun cast long shadows over stone temples and the Nile's waters reflected the gaze of forgotten gods, a secret was whispered among the priests. They called it the memory of the first time, a phrase that echoed through the halls of Sais, an ancient city where wisdom and mystery intertwined. It was here, in the shadow of Egypt's greatness, that a story was preserved, a story of a time long before Egypt, long before the pharaohs and pyramids, a time when the earth was ruled by a civilization unlike any other. This story was not written in the hieroglyphs that adorned the tombs of kings, nor was it carved into the grand obelisks that stretched toward the heavens. No, this story was passed down orally, carefully guarded by the priesthood who knew that knowledge of this kind could never be fully shared with the world. To the priests of Sais, Atlantis was not just a distant myth, but a memory, an ancient echo that stretched back to the dawn of time. It is said that Solon, the Athenian lawmaker who traveled to Egypt in the 6th century BCE, was the first to hear the tale. He visited the city of Sais and stood before a high priest who spoke of a time long past, a time when the earth was home to a powerful island civilization. Atlantis. According to the priest, Atlantis existed 9,000 years before Solon's time, and it was a place of unparalleled beauty, with cities made of gold and temples dedicated to the gods. The Atlanteans were a noble people, wise and just, but their greatness would be their undoing. Over time, as their power grew, so did their arrogance. They sought to dominate other lands, and in doing so, they invited their own destruction. It was not a sudden fall, but a gradual decline, one that ended in a great catastrophe, the likes of which the world had never seen. The oceans, it is said, rose up and swallowed the island, and with it, the knowledge and wisdom of a forgotten age. But what was most significant about this story, as Plato would later write, was not just the destruction of Atlantis, but the warning that the priest delivered. He told Solon that the story of Atlantis was not just an isolated event, but part of a larger pattern, a cycle of rise and fall that plagues civilizations throughout history. The rise of greatness, the descent into corruption, and the inevitable downfall. Atlantis, according to the priest, was a lesson, a cautionary tale for future generations. But while Plato took this story to heart as a moral lesson, it is important to understand that the priest of Sais was not just sharing a myth. He was sharing a history. And in this history lies the truth of Atlantis, an ancient and powerful kingdom that was not simply destroyed, but deliberately erased from history. There is a growing belief among some scholars and researchers that the priests of Egypt, particularly those in Sais, had access to a much older tradition of knowledge, one that was passed down from the survivors of Atlantis. These priests were not just religious leaders. They were the keepers of ancient wisdom. Their temples were not merely places of worship, but centers of learning, repositories of knowledge about the stars, the cycles of the earth, and the ancient civilizations that predated Egypt. The priesthood of Sais had long preserved stories of ancient lands, and it is believed that they knew of the existence of Atlantis not just through myth, but through the direct transmission of knowledge from those who had survived the cataclysm. Could the priests of Sais have been descendants of the Atlanteans? The theory is both fascinating and unsettling. If Atlantis was real, then it stands to reason that some of its people might have survived the disaster, taking refuge in Egypt or other distant lands. And if they did, they would have brought with them the knowledge of their civilization, knowledge that could have been shared and preserved by the ancient Egyptian priesthood. The gods of Egypt, after all, were not simply mythical beings. They were embodiments of the forces that govern the universe, forces that the Atlanteans may have understood and harnessed long before Egypt itself rose to power. The priesthood of Sais, aware of the dangers of sharing such powerful knowledge with the world, would have guarded it closely. They would have known that to reveal too much of Atlantis' true history would have led to chaos and destruction. So they concealed it in symbols, in allegories, and in esoteric teachings that only the initiated could understand. To the common people, the story of Atlantis became a myth, a cautionary tale, a far-off dream that had no basis in reality. But to those who had eyes to see, the story was far more than a tale. It was a memory encoded in the very fabric of Egypt's sacred traditions. It is from this secret tradition that we begin to unravel the threads of the Atlantean legacy. The Egyptian priests, with their knowledge of the stars, geometry, and the mysteries of life and death, were the bearers of a forgotten truth. They understood that the rise and fall of Atlantis was not just a singular event, but part of a larger cycle of human history, one that continues to this day. And though the Atlanteans themselves may have vanished beneath the waves, their knowledge was far from lost. It lived on, hidden within the teachings of the Egyptian priests, the mysteries of the pyramids, and the wisdom of the ancient world. The legacy of Atlantis, far from fading into obscurity, was carefully preserved, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to rediscover it. And now, as we look back through the lens of history, we begin to see the echoes of that long-lost civilization in the symbols, the myths, and the mysteries that have come down to us through the ages. Perhaps, just perhaps, the secrets of Atlantis are not lost forever. Perhaps they are waiting just beneath the surface for us to unlock them once again. The journey to uncover the truth of Atlantis is not only a search for lost cities, sunken temples, or mysterious artifacts. It is perhaps more fundamentally a quest for lost knowledge, a knowledge so ancient, so profound, that it has been hidden in plain sight for millennia. Throughout history, the legends of Atlantis have been intertwined with those of other ancient civilizations, and this connection, whether direct or symbolic, offers a powerful clue to its existence. From the ancient Greeks and Egyptians to the Mayans, the idea of a highly advanced, long-lost civilization is a recurring theme, a thread woven through the tapestry of human history. But what if these civilizations, far from being isolated, were somehow connected by a singular, shared source of wisdom? Could it be that the survivors of Atlantis spread their knowledge to the far corners of the earth, seeding the great empires that would follow? One of the most compelling aspects of the Atlantis story is not the island itself, but the advanced technologies and wisdom that it supposedly possessed. According to the ancient texts, the Atlanteans were not just skilled builders, but masters of engineering, astronomy, and agriculture. They were said to have created marvels of architecture and machinery that were so far ahead of their time that they would have been incomprehensible to the civilizations that followed. Imagine, if you will, a city built with crystalline materials that shimmered in the sun, where the streets were illuminated by a form of electric lighting long before the discovery of electricity. Picture temples that harnessed the power of the stars, using advanced astronomy to predict celestial events with uncanny precision. This was not a civilization limited by the technology of its time, but one that seemed to have transcended the basic principles of science and harnessed forces that we are only beginning to understand. But how is it that this knowledge, if it was so advanced, could be lost? The answer, it seems, lies in the very nature of Atlantis itself. According to the ancient accounts, the fall of Atlantis was not just the result of natural disasters, but of moral decay and corruption. As the Atlanteans grew more powerful, they began to use their knowledge not for the benefit of all, but for their own gain. They sought to conquer other lands, to dominate and control, and in doing so, they angered the gods. The catastrophe that followed was not simply a flood or an earthquake, but a divine reckoning, an event that would wipe the slate clean and restore balance to the world. And yet, even as the waters rose and the great city was consumed, the knowledge of Atlantis did not vanish completely. It scattered like seeds carried on the wind, taking root in distant lands, where it would grow into the great civilizations that followed. In Egypt, we see echoes of Atlantean knowledge in the construction of the pyramids. The sheer precision with which the Great Pyramid of Giza was built, its alignment with the stars, and its mysterious internal chambers all suggest a level of understanding that seems to transcend the capabilities of the ancient Egyptians. Many scholars have long wondered how the Egyptians were able to construct such monumental structures without the advanced technology that we assume they lacked. Could it be that the knowledge they used to build these pyramids was not of their own invention, but inherited from a much older source? Some researchers have pointed out the uncanny similarities between the pyramid complexes of Egypt and the descriptions of Atlantis provided by Plato. The intricate knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and energy fields that the Egyptians seem to have possessed could very well have been passed down from the survivors of Atlantis, preserved in secret teachings passed from one priesthood to the next. Across the Mediterranean, in Greece, we see the same pattern. The Greeks were among the first to write about Atlantis, but they were also the first to truly seek answers about its origins. In the works of Homer, Herodotus, and others, there are references to distant lands, forgotten kingdoms, and ancient wisdom. ideas that bear striking resemblance to the descriptions of Atlantis. The Greeks, after all, were no strangers to the idea of a lost golden age. Their mythology is filled with tales of gods who descended from the heavens to teach humanity the arts of civilization, arts that seem eerily similar to those attributed to the Atlanteans. Could the gods themselves have been Atlanteans? Perhaps the Greek gods, with their knowledge of the heavens and their command over the forces of nature, were not gods at all, but the survivors of a fallen civilization who retained their knowledge and passed it on to the next generation. Further west, in the Americas, we find evidence of similar ideas about a lost civilization. The ancient civilizations of the Maya, the Aztec, and the Olmec were all highly advanced, with intricate knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. Yet, like the Egyptians and the Greeks, their origins are shrouded in mystery. According to some scholars, the similarities between the myths of the ancient Americas and those of Atlantis are too striking to ignore. The Maya, for example, believed in a cyclical pattern of creation and destruction, much like the story of Atlantis. They spoke of an ancient civilization that existed long before their own, one that was destroyed by a great flood, and of a time when the gods would return to guide humanity through the next cycle of civilization. The very idea of a lost city in the jungles of Central America, waiting to be rediscovered, mirrors the story of Atlantis, an archetype that resonates with cultures around the world. As we look at these disparate cultures, it becomes clear that the idea of a lost civilization, one that existed long before recorded history, one that possessed advanced knowledge and technology, is not confined to any one region or people. It is a story that stretches across time and space, a story that links the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Maya, and many others. And while we may never know the full extent of the truth behind these myths, the evidence suggests that Atlantis, far from being a simple legend, was a real place, a place whose survivors left an indelible mark on the civilizations that followed. Perhaps, then, the question is not whether Atlantis existed, but rather where it went and how its legacy lives on. The answer, it seems, lies in the symbols, the myths, and the teachings that have persisted through the ages, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. The story of Atlantis is not just the story of a lost civilization. It is the story of a knowledge that transcends time, a knowledge that continues to echo through the ages, shaping the world in ways we are only just beginning to understand. As we delve deeper into the mystery of Atlantis, we must confront an unsettling truth. Atlantis, as a physical location, may not be the only thing lost to time. The knowledge, the wisdom, and the very essence of what made Atlantis so extraordinary may have been buried long after the last remnants of its civilization sank beneath the waves. For centuries, there has been a quiet but persistent belief among certain scholars and esoteric traditions that the true legacy of Atlantis is not hidden beneath the sea, but in the symbols, rituals, and teachings passed down through secret societies and hidden lineages. These survivors of Atlantis, whether they were actual people or their descendants, did not simply fade into obscurity. They became the stewards of a hidden knowledge, one that would be passed down through the ages, encoded in the mysteries of ancient orders like the Freemasons, the Knights Templar, and even the esoteric teachings of the Rosicrucians. The idea of secret societies is not a new one. Throughout history, organizations like the Freemasons have fascinated and puzzled those outside their ranks. What many fail to realize is that these groups often trace their origins back to much older traditions, ones that may have been influenced by the survivors of Atlantis themselves. Consider the symbolism found in many of these organizations. The square and compass of the Freemasons, the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati, the intricate patterns and geometries found in sacred architecture. All of these symbols, when examined closely, appear to point to a single source, the lost wisdom of a once great civilization. This connection is not merely speculative. Historians and researchers have long noted the peculiar similarities between the symbols used by secret societies and those described in the ancient records of Atlantis. The very idea of a hidden knowledge, a wisdom kept from the masses and passed down to a select few, mirrors the way the priesthood of Egypt might have concealed the truth of Atlantis. In fact, many of the esoteric traditions that flourished in the Middle Ages, particularly those associated with the rise of the Knights Templar, are believed to have been influenced by ancient knowledge, passed down through a mysterious line of initiates. The Templars, famed for their role in the Crusades, are often seen as the guardians of sacred secrets, secrets that some believe trace back to the lost civilization of Atlantis. One of the most fascinating connections between Atlantis and secret societies is the idea of sacred geometry, the study of shapes and patterns believed to embody the hidden laws of the universe. Sacred geometry was central to the construction of the ancient pyramids of Egypt, but also features prominently in the symbolism of the Freemasons and other secretive groups. The phi ratio, the golden spiral, the pentagram. All of these mathematical concepts were believed by the ancient Egyptians, and later by their supposed Atlantean predecessors, to contain hidden truths about the structure of the cosmos. In the world of secret societies, these geometric patterns are not just aesthetic. They're seen as keys to unlocking hidden realms of knowledge, realms that the ancient Atlanteans may have understood long before modern science could comprehend them. There's also the matter of the arcane texts, books, and scrolls that have survived through the ages, some of them well-known, others much more obscure. The ancient Hermetic texts, the writings attributed to Thoth, the emerald tablets of the alchemists. All of these works, which are central to the study of esotericism, contain hidden teachings that many believe trace their origins to Atlantis. In these texts, there are repeated references to the 7 sages or the 7 priests, who were said to have possessed the wisdom of the gods. These sages are often linked to the mythic figures who survived the sinking of Atlantis, carrying with them knowledge that would later be passed on to the ancient Egyptians and, by extension, to the rest of the world. Some researchers believe that the Hermetic tradition, which became foundational to Western occultism, was a direct continuation of Atlantean teachings, preserved and veiled by the secrecy of ancient initiates. But the connection between Atlantis and secret societies is not merely philosophical. It is also practical. The technology that Plato described in his account of Atlantis, machines capable of manipulating energy, devices used for healing, even the creation of artificial islands, is not so different from the concept that have fascinated modern-day inventors and scientists. Could it be that the survivors of Atlantis were not just bearers of spiritual wisdom, but also of technological knowledge? There are numerous accounts throughout history of advanced devices and machines that seem out of place in their time, machines that were either lost, destroyed, or hidden away. In the esoteric traditions, there are often references to ancient artifacts that were said to hold the power of the gods. These artifacts, sometimes described as Atlantean crystals or energy sources, are believed to have been capable of harnessing vast amounts of power, technology so advanced that it appears almost magical to modern eyes. Could these ancient technologies be the lost creations of Atlantis? As we consider the possibility that the knowledge of Atlantis was deliberately hidden, it's important to ask ourselves why. Why would such a powerful civilization choose to conceal their wisdom from the rest of the world? The answer may lie in the very nature of the Atlanteans themselves. According to Plato, the downfall of Atlantis was due to the moral decay of its people. Once they became corrupted by power, their knowledge was no longer used for the benefit of mankind, but for domination and control. The catastrophe that destroyed Atlantis may have been a divine retribution, but it was also a warning. The survivors, if they truly did escape the cataclysm, would have understood the dangers of such power. They would have known that to reveal too much to the world could lead to even greater destruction. Thus, They made a conscious choice to hide their knowledge, passing it only to those they deemed worthy of its secrets. The idea of keeping knowledge hidden from the masses, of protecting humanity from the dangerous potential of advanced technology, is a theme that recurs throughout the history of secret societies. It is not a coincidence that so many of the world's most powerful organizations have maintained strict secrecy about their rituals, teachings, and goals. These organizations, whether the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, or the Illuminati, often see themselves as the guardians of a higher wisdom. Wisdom that, if revealed to the wrong people, could lead to chaos, destruction, or even the collapse of civilization itself. In many ways, the story of Atlantis is not just the story of a lost civilization. It is the story of knowledge. Knowledge that, once lost, must be carefully preserved and guarded. And as we continue to uncover the layers of history, the symbols, the myths, and the secrets of secret societies, we begin to realize that Atlantis may not be lost after all. It lives on, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with the wisdom to see it. As the search for Atlantis takes us deeper into history, we begin to encounter a particularly fascinating and often overlooked part of the story: those enigmatic artifacts that have defied conventional explanations. These objects, scattered across the globe, have baffled archaeologists and researchers for centuries. Some are so intricate and advanced in design that they seem out of place in their historical context, while others carry strange inscriptions or peculiar symbols that bear a striking resemblance to the descriptions of Atlantean technology. For many, these artifacts are more than just curiosities. They're the lingering remnants of a lost civilization, waiting to reveal their secrets to those who are willing to look beyond the surface. What if the key to unlocking the truth of Atlantis lies not in the grand cities or submerged islands, but in the humble relics left behind by those who survived? Take, for example, the so-called Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device that has long puzzled historians and scientists alike. Discovered in 1901 off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, this artifact is often described as the world's first analog computer. Its intricate gears and precision craftsmanship suggest a level of technological sophistication that was far ahead of its time. So much so that scholars have struggled to explain how such a device could have been constructed in the 2nd century BCE. Some researchers believe that the Antikythera mechanism may have been a product of knowledge handed down from earlier, more advanced civilizations, possibly even from the lost world of Atlantis. The fact that such technology exists in the ancient world challenges our conventional understanding of technological progress, leading many to wonder, was this the work of a forgotten society with access to knowledge that we have yet to rediscover? Then there's the mysterious Baghdad Battery, an artifact discovered in modern-day Iraq, which dates back to around 250 BCE. This small clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod inside has sparked heated debates about its purpose. Some have suggested that it was an early form of a galvanic cell, capable of producing an electric charge. If this theory is correct, then it would imply that ancient civilizations had access to electricity centuries before it was rediscovered in the modern era. The existence of such an object raises profound questions about the capabilities of ancient cultures. Could the Baghdad Battery, much like the Antikythera mechanism, be another piece of evidence that links ancient knowledge to the lost world of Atlantis? Similar artifacts have been found all over the world, each one raising more questions than answers. In China, for example, there are reports of ancient jade discs that resemble the famous sailing stones of the Mojave Desert, stones that seem to move by themselves across the desert floor. These jade discs are thought to have been part of a larger system of technology used for transportation or even energy generation. In South America, the so-called Ica stones of Peru, with their intricate carvings of dinosaurs and advanced machinery, have sparked controversy for decades. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss them as hoaxes, but their origin and meaning remain a mystery. Could these stones be remnants of a forgotten civilization with access to knowledge that far surpassed anything we thought possible at the time? If the Ica stones truly depict dinosaurs and advanced machinery, could they be depicting the ancient world as it once was, before the cataclysm that destroyed Atlantis? What is most intriguing about these artifacts is the recurring presence of symbols and themes that align with the descriptions of Atlantis. The Antikythera mechanism, for example, is covered in intricate symbols that seem to represent celestial bodies and the cycles of the heavens. This closely mirrors the accounts of Atlantis, where the Atlanteans were said to possess a deep understanding of astronomy and the movements of the stars. The Baghdad Battery, with its potential connection to electricity, points to a civilization with a profound understanding of energy and its applications. Knowledge that, if rediscovered today, could revolutionize our understanding of physics and technology. And the Ica stones, with their depictions of advanced machinery and prehistoric creatures, suggest a civilization that was not only far more technologically advanced than we believe, but also far more connected to the natural world than we realize. There are also the countless ancient texts that describe mysterious devices or artifacts, objects that could not have existed in their time, but seem to fit perfectly within the context of Atlantean technology. In the Timaeus and Critias, Plato describes Atlantis as a civilization that possessed not only advanced machinery, but also highly sophisticated weapons. These weapons were said to be capable of controlling natural forces, manipulating the elements, and even bending time and space. While Plato's descriptions are often seen as fantastical by mainstream scholars, many alternative historians and researchers believe that these accounts may be based on actual technologies that the Atlanteans developed. Could some of the artifacts found across the world today be the remnants of such advanced devices, tools and machines created by a civilization that understood forces far beyond the scope of our current scientific knowledge? One of the most profound implications of these discoveries is the idea that Atlantis did not simply fall into oblivion, but rather its knowledge was scattered across the globe in the form of these artifacts. This raises the possibility that the survivors of Atlantis did not just flee to other lands, but actively sought to preserve their technology, passing it on to the civilizations that would come after. Just as the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and other cultures inherited knowledge from the survivors of Atlantis, so too did the ancient cultures of South America, China, and other parts of the world. Perhaps the true legacy of Atlantis lies not in the remains of a sunken city, but in the scattered remnants of its technology and wisdom. Remnants that continue to shape the course of human history, even in the present day. The significance of these artifacts goes beyond their immediate historical or archaeological value. They represent a potential window into a lost world, one that existed long before the rise of modern civilization, and one that may hold the key to understanding the true origins of humanity. If Atlantis was indeed a real place, then these artifacts may offer us a glimpse of what once was, a glimpse into a world where science and spirituality were seamlessly integrated, where knowledge was revered as sacred, and where technology was used to harmonize with the natural world rather than dominate it. In the end, it may be these very artifacts, hidden in the dust of forgotten temples and buried in the sands of time, that offer us the clearest path to uncovering the greatest secret of all, the lost knowledge of Atlantis. As we continue to piece together the fragmented history of Atlantis, we must now consider an equally fascinating element of the mystery: the prophecies and legends that have emerged across cultures which seem to foretell the return of Atlantis, or at least a revival of its lost wisdom. These prophecies, found in ancient texts, religious scriptures, and mythological stories, speak not only of the civilization's fall, but also of its eventual resurgence. It's as though the knowledge of Atlantis was not meant to be forgotten entirely, but hidden, awaiting the right time to re-emerge and reshape the course of human history once more. The question now becomes, Could the end of Atlantis merely be the beginning of a much larger story? One in which the lost wisdom of this ancient civilization is destined to influence the modern world in ways we are only beginning to understand? One of the most prominent figures in this regard is the famous Greek philosopher Plato, whose writings on Atlantis have shaped much of our understanding of the lost civilization. In his works, particularly the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato not only recounts the story of Atlantis' demise, but also speaks of a time when the island will rise again. While Plato's description is often seen as a symbolic allegory, many believe that he was not simply inventing a fable, but rather passing down ancient knowledge. Some scholars argue that Plato was transmitting a prophecy that had been handed down from even earlier civilizations, warning of a time when the wisdom of Atlantis would be rediscovered and could either save or destroy the world. The idea of Atlantis' return has been deeply embedded in various traditions, sometimes in the form of apocalyptic prophecies, and sometimes as a hopeful vision of a new golden age. This belief is not confined to ancient Greece. Across the world, different cultures have their own versions of the Atlantis myth, often with strikingly similar themes. In the ancient Mayan civilization, for example, the concept of cyclical time and the periodic destruction and rebirth of the world closely mirrors the fate of Atlantis. The Mayans believed that the world had been created and destroyed 4 times before, with each destruction marking the end of an age and the beginning of a new one. According to some interpretations, the final destruction of the world would be followed by the emergence of a new civilization, one that would possess the wisdom and technology to avoid the mistakes of the past. Could this new civilization be the reincarnation of Atlantis, or at least a civilization that would inherit its ancient knowledge and rise again to prominence? Similarly, in Hindu cosmology, the concept of Kali Yuga, the last of the 4 ages of mankind, describes a time of moral and spiritual decline, followed by a great cataclysm and a subsequent renewal. According to the Bhagavata Purana, this cycle of creation and destruction is part of a larger divine plan, and is believed that after the destruction of the Kali Yuga, a new age of enlightenment will emerge. In some interpretations, this rebirth is linked to the idea of an advanced civilization, one that could rise from the ashes of the old world to usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. Could this be a reference to the return of the wisdom of Atlantis, which would lead humanity out of its current age of darkness and into a new age of enlightenment? These recurring themes of destruction and rebirth, found in cultures as far apart as the Mayans, the Hindus, and the Greeks, are not mere coincidences. They suggest a shared belief in the cyclical nature of time, in which civilizations rise and fall according to an unseen order. And what if Atlantis was not merely one of these lost civilizations, but a key part of this larger cycle? What if the myth of Atlantis' return is not just a metaphor, but a prophecy waiting to unfold? Perhaps the remnants of this advanced civilization were never truly lost, but instead buried in the collective unconscious of humanity, awaiting a time when the world would be ready to rediscover them. There are also more recent prophecies that speak to the idea of Atlantis' resurgence. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, during a time of intense interest in mysticism and the occult, many esoteric thinkers began to speak of a coming age when the lost knowledge of Atlantis would reawaken. Figures like Helena Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, claimed that the ancient wisdom of Atlantis was not entirely gone, but had been preserved in secret teachings passed down through hidden societies. Blavatsky herself referred to the masters of wisdom, spiritual beings who were believed to hold the keys to Atlantis' knowledge. These beings, according to Blavatsky, were watching over humanity and preparing to guide us into a new age of understanding, a time when the wisdom of Atlantis would once again be made available to the worthy. This concept of secret wisdom also appears in the writings of other influential occultists, such as Rudolf Steiner and Alice Bailey. Both of these thinkers describe the coming of a new spiritual age, one in which humanity would rediscover its true potential and unlock the hidden knowledge of the ancients. Steiner, in particular, spoke of a time when humanity would come into direct contact with the spiritual realms and receive guidance from higher beings that could very well be the descendants of the survivors of Atlantis. In his lectures, Steiner often hinted that the wisdom of Atlantis was not lost to the world forever, but was merely awaiting the right moment to be reintroduced into human consciousness. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these prophecies is the timing. Many of these esoteric thinkers predicted that the return of Atlantis' wisdom would coincide with a global shift in human consciousness. They spoke of a time when humanity would undergo a spiritual awakening, a time when the veil of ignorance would be lifted and the advanced knowledge of the ancients would once again be accessible. According to some, this awakening is already underway. The growing interest in esoteric traditions, the rise of new spiritual movements, and the increasing exploration of alternative history and suppressed knowledge all point to a collective shift in awareness, a shift that could eventually lead to the revelation of Atlantis' secrets. The question we must ask ourselves is whether we are truly ready for such a revelation. The knowledge of Atlantis, if it were to be revealed in its entirety, would be both a blessing and a curse. It would hold the power to transform our world, to propel us forward into a new era of enlightenment and technological progress. But it would also carry the potential for destruction, just as the original Atlanteans are said to have misused their power. Could we, as a species, handle the weight of such knowledge? Are we prepared to unlock the secrets of Atlantis without repeating the mistakes of the past? As we contemplate these questions, we cannot help but wonder if the return of Atlantis is already in motion. In our search for truth, we may not only be uncovering the remains of a lost civilization, but also preparing ourselves for the moment when the ancient wisdom of Atlantis is revealed to the world once again. Whether this moment happens in our lifetime or centuries from now, one thing is clear. The story of Atlantis is far from over. It is merely waiting for the right time to be completed. The idea that Atlantis might not have been entirely destroyed, but rather fragmented and scattered across the globe, opens the door to a fascinating hypothesis. What if the survivors of Atlantis didn't simply vanish into history? Instead, they left behind a series of carefully placed clues, hidden locations, and coded messages, each one potentially leading to the rediscovery of their lost city, its wisdom, and perhaps even its technologies. Over the centuries, these clues have come to the attention of explorers, archaeologists, and even treasure hunters who have sought to unravel the mysteries of Atlantis. Some have ventured to the farthest corners of the earth, driven by ancient texts, obscure legends, and secretive orders, all hoping to unlock the ultimate secret, the exact location of Atlantis, or more likely, the pieces of its legacy that remain hidden in plain sight. One of the most well-known clues comes from the ancient world itself. The Greek historian Herodotus, often called the father of history, wrote about an ancient civilization that he believed to have been the precursor to the great Egyptian empire. In his writings, Herodotus mentions the Atlanteans as a powerful people who may have once lived on the far side of the ocean, across from the Mediterranean. These Atlanteans, he claimed, were the ancestors of the Egyptians and had knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and other sciences far ahead of their time. While many of Herodotus' accounts are regarded with skepticism, his mention of an advanced civilization on the other side of the world has inspired countless theories about Atlantis and its potential connections to ancient Egypt and beyond. Another tantalizing piece of evidence comes from the work of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, whose accounts of Atlantis have shaped much of the modern understanding of the lost civilization. According to Plato's dialogues, Atlantis was a vast island situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. He describes the island as larger than Libya and Asia combined, a land of immense wealth, advanced technology, and powerful military prowess. However, due to their moral corruption, the Atlanteans eventually fell out of favor with the gods and were destroyed by a cataclysmic event, sinking into the sea. Yet Plato's description, while providing details of the island's geography and culture, offers little in terms of exact coordinates or specific markers that could guide us to Atlantis. Instead, Plato's writings are filled with metaphors and allegories, which leaves many scholars wondering whether he was describing a real place or using Atlantis as a symbolic cautionary tale. Despite the ambiguity of Plato's account, numerous theories have emerged over the years that attempt to pinpoint Atlantis' location. Some have suggested the island may have been situated somewhere in the Mediterranean, possibly near the Greek island of Santorini, which was home to the ancient Minoan civilization. The Minoans, like the Atlanteans, were known for their advanced maritime culture, impressive architectural feats, and sophisticated art and technology. In fact, the eruption of the Santorini volcano around 1600 BCE may have been a major catalyst for the destruction of the Minoan civilization, and some believe it could have inspired the Atlantis myth. Others have proposed that Atlantis was located in the Caribbean, possibly in the Bahamas or near Cuba. The discovery of underwater structures in these areas, including what appear to be pyramids or megalithic ruins, has led some to believe that the remnants of Atlantis might be hidden beneath the sea, waiting to be rediscovered. Yet, while many of these theories are intriguing, they fail to account for the widespread presence of similar Atlantean artifacts, symbols, and legends found across the globe. From the pyramids of Egypt to the ancient ruins of South America, many cultures seem to share strikingly similar motifs and architectural styles, suggesting that they might have inherited knowledge from a common source. Some researchers argue that Atlantis wasn't a singular location at all, but a global civilization with far-reaching influence. Its wisdom and technologies dispersed across the world before it met its cataclysmic end. This would explain the strange similarities between cultures that had no contact with one another, such as the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, and the Chinese. Each of these civilizations left behind remnants of their own versions of Atlantean knowledge, whether through sacred geometry, advanced construction techniques, or the use of astronomical alignments. Could these similarities point to the spread of Atlantean culture and knowledge after the island's destruction, its legacy preserved in fragments scattered across the globe? In the modern era, the search for Atlantis has taken on a more mystical and esoteric tone, with secret societies and occult groups often at the forefront of the quest. From the ancient mystery schools of Egypt to the more recent efforts of groups like the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, there's a long history of societies dedicated to preserving and passing down knowledge hidden from the masses. These groups, many of which trace their origins to the ancient world, are believed by some to possess fragments of the lost wisdom of Atlantis. They are seen as the modern-day stewards of the Atlantean legacy, guardians of a treasure trove of secrets that, if revealed, could fundamentally alter our understanding of history, science, and spirituality. In fact, some scholars believe that many of the most famous mystical sites around the world, places like the Great Pyramid of Giza, the ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, and even the ruins of Machu Picchu, may hold hidden clues that point to the existence of Atlantis or to the ancient knowledge that survived its fall. Among the most famous of these secretive pursuits is the quest for the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred relic believed to have been housed in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Some theorists suggest that the Ark contains not only religious significance, but also holds the key to unlocking Atlantean wisdom, with its mysterious powers possibly linked to the advanced technology of the lost civilization. The Ark is said to have been able to generate immense electrical energy, an idea that aligns with the theories of those who believe that the Atlanteans harnessed a form of energy that modern science has yet to fully understand. Could the Ark, like so many other hidden relics, be a part of the larger puzzle, one that, if found, might reveal not only the true location of Atlantis, but also the powerful knowledge it once held? The search for Atlantis also extends to the concept of lost maps and ancient cartography. Throughout history, explorers and adventurers have stumbled upon mysterious maps, often of places that should not exist according to known geography. One of the most famous examples is the Piri Reis map, a 16th century Ottoman map that appears to show the coastline of Antarctica without ice. The map has confounded historians and cartographers for centuries, as Antarctica was not supposed to have been discovered until modern times. Some suggest that the Piri Reis map is a remnant of Atlantean knowledge, perhaps a map that was passed down through the ages, recording the locations of lost civilizations, including Atlantis itself. Other maps, such as the maps of the ancient Phoenicians or the Chinese, show strange details that seem to defy conventional historical understanding, further adding to the mystery of Atlantis' global influence. As we continue to uncover these hidden pieces of the puzzle, artifacts, maps, symbols, and ancient texts, it becomes increasingly clear that Atlantis was more than just a mythical place. It was a civilization whose legacy has been dispersed, hidden, and preserved in pieces, awaiting rediscovery. The question now is not so much whether Atlantis existed, but when, and under what circumstances, the truth will finally be revealed. With each new discovery, each new theory, we get closer to understanding not just the location of Atlantis, but the nature of its enduring influence on the course of human history. Could it be that the remnants of this once great civilization are hidden not only in the earth, but within the very fabric of our consciousness, waiting for the right time to surface once again? As we delve deeper into the mysteries of Atlantis, we begin to uncover a complex web of symbols, ancient rituals, and secretive orders that point to a hidden truth, one that suggests the legacy of Atlantis was never fully lost. Instead, it was preserved in the most unlikely of places, secret societies. These groups, which have existed throughout history, from the ancient mystery schools of Egypt to modern esoteric movements, may hold the key to understanding not only the fate of Atlantis, but also the ancient knowledge that its survivors passed down through the ages. But why would such powerful knowledge be kept hidden? And what role have these secret societies played in preserving and perhaps even guarding the secrets of Atlantis? One of the most famous secret societies associated with the quest for hidden knowledge is the Freemasons. Often shrouded in mystery and myth, the Freemasons are believed by some to be the modern inheritors of ancient wisdom, wisdom that stretches back to the time of Atlantis itself. The Freemasons trace their roots to medieval stonemasons guilds, but many believe that their teachings, symbols, and rituals are derived from much older traditions. Some researchers argue that the Freemasons' secret rituals, particularly those involving sacred geometry, the Pythagorean system of numbers, and the veneration of the great architect of the universe, are direct echoes of the teachings passed down from the Atlanteans. The use of the square and compass, for example, is thought by some to be a representation of the advanced mathematical and architectural knowledge that was possessed by the Atlanteans, knowledge that allowed them to build not only massive stone structures, but also to harness natural forces in ways we are still struggling to understand. The connection between the Freemasons and Atlantis goes beyond just symbols and rituals. Some believe that the Freemasons are part of a long line of initiates who have guarded the lost knowledge of Atlantis for centuries. According to certain esoteric traditions, after the fall of Atlantis, its survivors sought refuge in various parts of the world. They established secret societies, which were designed to preserve their advanced knowledge and prevent it from being lost to time. These societies, such as the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, and, of course, the Freemasons were believed to have inherited this knowledge and passed it down in a covert manner, often disguised as religious or philosophical teachings. The idea that the Freemasons possess the keys to unlocking the secrets of Atlantis has been a source of fascination for many alternative historians, particularly those who believe that Atlantis was not merely a myth but a real, advanced civilization whose wisdom has shaped the course of human history. This belief in the preservation of Atlantean wisdom is also reflected in the teachings of other mystical traditions, such as the Theosophical Society, founded by Helena Blavatsky in the late 19th century. Blavatsky's writings, particularly in The Secret Doctrine, suggest that the knowledge of Atlantis was not only preserved, but that the spiritual and philosophical teachings of the Atlanteans continue to influence the world today. According to Blavatsky, Atlantis was home to an ancient, enlightened race that possessed profound knowledge of the cosmos, of the forces that govern nature, and of the hidden laws of the universe. She argued that the Atlanteans were able to harness the power of the mind and spirit in ways that modern science has yet to comprehend. Their downfall, Blavatsky believed, came not from a lack of knowledge, but from the misuse of their powers, a lesson that humanity must learn in the present age. Blavatsky's ideas about Atlantis were not unique to her. They reflect a broader trend in esoteric thought, where the fall of Atlantis is seen as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked technological and spiritual power. In this view, the survivors of Atlantis did not simply vanish, but left behind teachings and symbols designed to guide future generations. This belief is mirrored in the work of other prominent esoteric thinkers, such as Rudolf Steiner, who argued that the spiritual legacy of Atlantis was being carried forward by those who were willing to seek out its teachings. Steiner believed that humanity's spiritual evolution was directly connected to the rediscovery of the ancient wisdom of Atlantis, and that certain hidden societies were tasked with guarding and revealing this knowledge when the time was right. But the connection between secret societies and the lost wisdom of Atlantis is not just a modern phenomenon. Ancient mystery schools, such as those in Egypt, Greece, and Babylon, are believed to have been centers of esoteric knowledge where initiates were taught the secrets of the cosmos, the divine, and the natural world. These schools, which included the famous Egyptian priesthoods and the Greek Pythagoreans, were thought to possess knowledge that was far beyond what the average person could understand. Many of the teachings passed down through these mystery schools are said to be remnants of the wisdom of Atlantis, preserved in symbolic form. In fact, some researchers suggest that the Great Pyramid of Giza, with its precise mathematical proportions and alignment to the stars, may be a direct link to the knowledge of Atlantis, a symbol of the advanced technology and architectural genius that the Atlanteans were believed to possess. In addition to the Freemasons and other secret societies, another group that plays a key role in the preservation of Atlantean knowledge is the Knights Templar. The Templars, a medieval order of knights who rose to prominence during the Crusades, are often associated with the search for the Holy Grail. However, some believe that the Grail was not just a cup, but a symbol of the lost knowledge of Atlantis. The Templars were known to have had access to ancient texts and artifacts during their time in the Holy Land, and many theorists believe that they uncovered evidence of Atlantis and its advanced teachings. This theory is supported by the fact that the Templars used symbols that are reminiscent of those found in ancient Egyptian and Atlantean traditions, including the use of sacred geometry and the veneration of the divine feminine. The idea that secret societies have been tasked with guarding the knowledge of Atlantis also ties into the broader concept of a hidden or suppressed history. According to this view, mainstream history has deliberately overlooked or suppressed the existence of Atlantis and its influence on human civilization, whether due to a fear of the potential dangers of such knowledge or because of a deliberate effort to maintain control over humanity. The true story of Atlantis has been obscured for millennia. But the secret societies, many of which are believed to have had access to hidden manuscripts, ancient maps, and forgotten teachings have continued to preserve and pass down the lost knowledge. These societies, operating in the shadows, have acted as the custodians of a legacy that, if revealed, could radically alter our understanding of the world. Today, the legacy of these secret societies is still present in many of the symbols, rituals, and teachings that are woven into the fabric of our culture. From the mysterious carvings found in ancient temples to the sacred geometry of modern architecture, traces of Atlantis' knowledge continue to influence our world. And as the search for truth continues, it is possible that the next major breakthrough in our understanding of Atlantis will come not from an archaeological excavation or scientific discovery, but from the unraveling of the hidden knowledge preserved by these ancient and secretive orders. The question now is whether we, as a society, are ready to receive this knowledge. If the survivors of Atlantis did indeed leave behind a blueprint for a better world, one where science and spirituality are in harmony, are we capable of unlocking its full potential without repeating the mistakes of the past? As the mysteries of Atlantis continue to unfold, it seems that the guardians of its wisdom are waiting for humanity to take the next step in its evolution. Will we heed their call? As we move further into the exploration of Atlantis, it's clear that the search for this fabled civilization transcends the realm of mere archaeology. It's not simply about locating ruins or artifacts that may have survived the ancient cataclysm. The quest for Atlantis is, at its core, a deeper search for lost knowledge, a knowledge that, if rediscovered, could have profound implications for the modern world. While historians, scientists, and treasure hunters continue their efforts to pinpoint the physical location of Atlantis, there's an equally important journey taking place, one that seeks to unlock the hidden spiritual and technological secrets that Atlantis may have left behind. This pursuit is not just about uncovering the material remains of an ancient civilization, but about understanding its legacy, which has the potential to reshape our understanding of humanity's past and future. Many believe that the Atlanteans possessed a knowledge of energy, physics, and consciousness that far surpassed anything we have today. Some theories suggest that the Atlanteans had mastered advanced forms of energy, using methods that are unknown to modern science. Could their civilization have harnessed free energy, tapping into the natural forces of the Earth, the Sun, or even the cosmos? If so, this knowledge could be the key to solving some of the most pressing issues of our time, such as the global energy crisis and the depletion of natural resources. In this light, the search for Atlantis becomes not only a historical quest, but a futuristic one. The ancient wisdom that the Atlanteans may have possessed could offer us solutions to the challenges we face today. It could provide the missing pieces of the puzzle when it comes to sustainable energy, environmental preservation, and even space exploration. After all, if the Atlanteans were capable of tapping into the energy of the Earth or the stars, why couldn't we? In this sense, the search for Atlantis is not just a search for the past, but a quest for the future. One of the most compelling aspects of this search is the idea that the lost technology of Atlantis is encoded in sacred sites and ancient monuments around the world. From the pyramids of Egypt to the megalithic ruins of South America and Europe, these structures are often seen as more than just architectural feats. Many believe that they are part of an ancient network designed to transmit or harness energy. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, has long been a source of fascination due to its precise alignment with the stars and its potential as an energy generator. Some theorists argue that the pyramid was not merely a tomb, but a gigantic machine, possibly used to tap into the Earth's energy grid or even harness electromagnetic forces. The alignment of the pyramid with the cardinal points and the stars of Orion's belt suggests a deep understanding of astronomy and energy that may have been passed down from the Atlanteans. Similarly, the stone circles of ancient Britain, such as Stonehenge, are often linked to the idea of Atlantean knowledge. These megalithic structures are thought to have been used for astronomical observation, ritual purposes, and possibly even as energy generators. The stones themselves, many of which were transported from miles away, seem to be carefully chosen for their properties, suggesting that the builders had a sophisticated understanding of geology and energy. Could these stone circles be remnants of a lost Atlantean network, designed to harness and amplify the natural forces of the Earth? In South America, the Nazca lines in Peru represent another puzzle that may be connected to the lost knowledge of Atlantis. These enormous geoglyphs, some of which are only fully visible from the air, have puzzled researchers for decades. Their purpose remains unclear, but some believe that they were created as part of an ancient energy system designed to interact with the Earth's magnetic field or to align with celestial bodies. The precision of the lines and their apparent connection to the stars and the Earth's energy grid suggest that the people who created them possessed an advanced understanding of the natural world. Could the Nazca lines be a product of Atlantean influence, a clue left behind to guide future generations to the rediscovery of lost knowledge? The idea that sacred sites and ancient monuments could be part of an Atlantean energy network is not just the stuff of fringe theories. There are many modern researchers and scientists who believe that these sites hold a hidden significance that goes beyond their conventional historical purposes. Some have even suggested that the Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, and other ancient monuments may have been part of a global system of energy transmission, an ancient network of power sources that allowed the Atlanteans to manipulate the natural forces of the Earth. This concept of an energy grid, sometimes referred to as the world grid or ley lines, suggests that these sacred sites were carefully chosen for their location on the Earth's surface, where they could harness and amplify the planet's natural energies. This idea of a global energy network also ties into the concept of sacred geometry, which plays a key role in many ancient civilizations. Sacred geometry, the study of geometric patterns and their relationship to the universe, was a central aspect of the Atlantean worldview. The Atlanteans are believed to have had a deep understanding of how geometry and energy are interrelated, using this knowledge to design their cities, temples, and monuments. The use of sacred geometry in the construction of pyramids, stone circles, and other megalithic structures suggests that the builders were aware of the energetic properties of these shapes and how they could influence the environment around them. In fact, some researchers believe that the ancient knowledge of sacred geometry was passed down from Atlantis and is encoded in the architecture of ancient buildings around the world. For example, the golden ratio, a mathematical principle that appears throughout nature and in the design of many ancient structures, is thought to have been known to the Atlanteans. This ratio, which is often associated with beauty and harmony, may have been used by the Atlanteans to create structures that were not only aesthetically pleasing, but also capable of interacting with the natural energies of the Earth. What is even more intriguing is the idea that the Atlanteans may have been able to manipulate these natural energies in ways that we are only beginning to understand. Some believe that the survivors of Atlantis did not simply pass down their knowledge of energy, but that they actively sought to keep it hidden, knowing that it could be used for both great good and great destruction. This hidden knowledge, preserved in secret societies and encoded in sacred texts and symbols, could hold the key to a new understanding of energy, technology, and the very fabric of reality itself. If the survivors of Atlantis did indeed leave behind a map to rediscover their knowledge, it may not be a traditional map at all. Instead, it may be a map of energy, a guide to the places on Earth where the forces of nature could be tapped into and harnessed for the benefit of humanity. As our understanding of energy and consciousness continues to evolve, it is possible that we will unlock the hidden secrets of Atlantis, rediscovering the lost technology that could revolutionize the way we live. But in order to do so, we must first learn to see the world not just in terms of physical matter, but as a complex, interconnected web of energy, geometry, and consciousness. The search for Atlantis, in this sense, is not just about finding a lost city, but about rediscovering our true potential as a species, an awakening that could transform the future of humanity. As we continue our exploration into the depths of Atlantean secrets, it becomes clear that the story of this lost civilization is not confined to the distant past. The mysteries of Atlantis are still very much alive in the modern world, influencing our cultures, beliefs, and even our technological aspirations. In fact, some theorists suggest that the resurgence of interest in Atlantis during the 20th and 21st centuries is no accident. Rather, it's a sign that the world is once again ready to confront the knowledge that the Atlanteans may have left behind. In this section, we'll delve into the modern implications of the Atlantean mystery and how the rediscovery of this ancient wisdom could shape the future of humanity. One of the most compelling aspects of the modern fascination with Atlantis is the rise of new technologies that seem to echo the lost advancements of the Atlanteans. Over the past century, humanity has experienced rapid technological progress, particularly in fields such as energy, communication, and transportation. But despite these advances, we are still far from achieving the kind of sustainable, harmonious technologies that some believe the Atlanteans mastered. The question that arises is, why? Despite our technological prowess, have we not yet unlocked the kinds of energy systems and environmental solutions that would allow us to live in balance with nature? Could it be that the key to these solutions lies in the ancient wisdom of Atlantis? The notion that Atlantis may have possessed advanced technologies, especially in the fields of energy generation and manipulation, has been a subject of great interest in alternative history circles. According to some theories, the Atlanteans may have harnessed free energy, tapping into the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, or even utilizing the energy of the cosmos itself. The idea of free energy is not as far-fetched as it may sound. In fact, many researchers in the fields of physics and energy are exploring similar concepts today. Zero-point energy, a theoretical form of energy that exists in the vacuum of space, is one such concept that could potentially provide an infinite, clean source of power. Could the Atlanteans have discovered a way to tap into this energy? And if so, did they use it to power their advanced technology, allowing them to build massive cities, travel across the globe, or even explore the stars? One of the most intriguing aspects of this theory is the possibility that the Atlanteans used their advanced energy technology not only to power machines, but to manipulate the very fabric of reality. Some esoteric traditions suggest that the Atlanteans had a deep understanding of consciousness and its connection to the physical world. This connection between mind and matter may have allowed them to perform feats that we would consider to be beyond the reach of modern science. Things like levitating massive stones, manipulating gravitational fields, or even achieving a form of teleportation. While these ideas may sound like science fiction, they're not entirely without precedent. There are modern-day researchers who are investigating the potential for consciousness-based technologies, and some believe that the mind may one day be able to influence physical reality in ways we have yet to comprehend. The concept of consciousness as a powerful, untapped force is central to many esoteric and spiritual traditions, and it is also a key element of the Atlantis mythos. Some believe that the Atlanteans were not only technologically advanced, but also spiritually enlightened, possessing knowledge of the mind's potential that could have allowed them to transcend the limitations of the physical world. According to certain schools of thought, the downfall of Atlantis was caused not just by a misuse of technology, but by the Atlanteans' failure to maintain balance between their spiritual and material pursuits. The cataclysm that destroyed Atlantis was, in this view, a result of humanity's hubris, their belief that they could control nature without understanding the deeper spiritual laws that govern the universe. This is a cautionary tale that resonates deeply in our modern world, where technological advancement often outpaces our ability to understand its consequences. As we stand on the brink of new scientific discoveries, there are those who believe that the Atlanteans left behind clues that could help us avoid the mistakes they made. For example, the rediscovery of sacred geometry and the application of this knowledge in modern architecture and energy systems may be key to unlocking a more harmonious way of living. Sacred geometry, which underpinned the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the temples of ancient Greece, and many other megalithic structures, is thought to hold the secret to creating buildings and systems that are in alignment with the natural forces of the earth. Some theorists suggest that the Atlanteans used sacred geometry not just in their architecture, but in their understanding of energy, creating systems that could tap into the Earth's electromagnetic field or manipulate the energy of the cosmos. The rise of alternative energy technologies, such as solar power, wind energy, and even experimental methods like cold fusion, is often seen as part of humanity's ongoing search for a sustainable future, one that echoes the energy systems the Atlanteans may have used. In fact, some have argued that the modern world is slowly rediscovering the same principles that the Atlanteans mastered thousands of years ago. While we have not yet fully tapped into the kinds of advanced technologies that some believe the Atlanteans used, the growing interest in sustainable energy and environmental conservation could be seen as a modern-day attempt to reconnect with the wisdom of the ancients. One area where Atlantis' influence may be particularly relevant is in the realm of environmental science and climate change. The Atlanteans are often portrayed as having lived in a time when they were in perfect harmony with the natural world, living in balance with the elements and utilizing advanced technologies to manage their environment. In contrast, the modern world is facing unprecedented environmental challenges, including global warming, deforestation, and pollution. Could the lost knowledge of Atlantis hold the answers to these pressing issues? Some researchers believe that if we can unlock the secrets of Atlantean technology and spirituality, we might be able to find solutions that will allow us to reverse environmental damage and restore balance to the planet. The search for Atlantis in the modern era is not only a search for ancient technology or hidden knowledge, but a quest for a new way of being. As humanity faces global crises such as climate change, resource depletion, and political instability, the idea of rediscovering Atlantean wisdom offers a glimmer of hope. Could the Atlanteans, with their advanced energy systems, sustainable technologies, and spiritual understanding, provide a model for how we might build a more harmonious world? The answer, perhaps, lies not in finding the lost city of Atlantis, but in rediscovering the principles that underpinned its existence and applying them to the world we live in today. In many ways, the modern fascination with Atlantis serves as a mirror to our own time. We are living in an age of rapid technological advancement, but we are also grappling with the consequences of those advances. The ancient wisdom of Atlantis may offer a path forward, a way to balance our technological progress with a deeper understanding of the natural world and our place within it. As the search for Atlantis continues, it's possible that we will not only uncover the secrets of an ancient civilization, but rediscover the principles that can guide us into a more sustainable and enlightened future. OES was a society not only of great technological achievement, but also of profound spiritual insight. The Atlanteans are said to have understood the mysteries of the human soul, the nature of consciousness, and the interconnectedness of all life. In this view, the destruction of Atlantis wasn't merely the result of natural disasters or human hubris, but a necessary turning point in the evolution of human consciousness, a fall from grace that marked a transition from a golden age of spiritual wisdom to a more materialistic and fragmented world. The belief that Atlantis was a society with profound spiritual knowledge is a central theme in many esoteric teachings. In these traditions, Atlantis is often seen as the birthplace of sacred knowledge, an advanced civilization that was both theologically and scientifically advanced. According to some esoteric traditions, the Atlanteans possessed a deep understanding of the mystical forces that govern the universe. They are said to have mastered the art of divine geometry, astrology, and alchemy, and were capable of working with the fundamental energies of the cosmos. Some even claim that the Atlanteans were in direct contact with extraterrestrial beings, who imparted advanced knowledge that was far beyond what humanity is capable of understanding today. The mystical traditions associated with Atlantis are not limited to ancient texts or oral histories. Over the centuries, the idea of Atlantean wisdom has been perpetuated by secret societies who claim to have inherited the knowledge of Atlantis and its spiritual practices. These societies, often operating in the shadows of mainstream culture, have been accused of protecting the secrets of Atlantis from masses, believing that such knowledge is too powerful to be shared with the general public. The Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and other secret societies are often linked to the Atlantis myth, with some even claiming that their ancient symbols and rituals are direct descendants of the lost knowledge of Atlantis. One of the most influential figures in the modern reinterpretation of Atlantis is the American philosopher and mystic Edgar Cayce. Known as the Sleeping Prophet, Cayce made thousands of prophecies and readings throughout his life, many of which were focused on the lost civilization of Atlantis. According to Cayce's readings, Atlantis was a highly advanced civilization that existed over 10,000 years ago, and its people possessed extraordinary spiritual and technological abilities. Cayce's vision of Atlantis was not one of a peaceful, harmonious society, but rather a civilization on the brink of destruction, undone by its own excessive use of power and its disregard for spiritual principles. Cayce's prophecies, along with those of other modern mystics, have given rise to a new wave of interest in Atlantis. They suggest that the fall of Atlantis was not simply a historical event, but a spiritual crisis, one that involved a dramatic shift in the collective consciousness of humanity. This view of Atlantis as a spiritual allegory has been embraced by many, who see the story of a lost civilization as a metaphor for the modern world. Just as Atlantis fell because of its over-reliance on materialism and technology, so too are we, in the modern world, at risk of repeating the same mistakes. The fall of Atlantis, in this sense, becomes a warning, a cautionary tale about the dangers of forgetting the spiritual dimensions of life. While the story of Atlantis may have originated thousands of years ago, its relevance to our modern world is undeniable. As we continue to advance technologically and scientifically, there's a growing concern that we may be losing touch with the very essence of what it means to be human. The rise of artificial intelligence, the manipulation of genetic material, and the quest for immortality all raise important ethical questions about the direction in which humanity is headed. In this context, the Atlantean mystery serves as a reminder that the pursuit of power and knowledge must be tempered with wisdom, compassion, and respect for the natural world. The teachings of Atlantis also carry a profound message about the potential of human consciousness. Many modern spiritual teachers suggest that the fall of Atlantis was not merely a physical catastrophe, but a symbolic event, marking the descent of humanity into a state of forgetfulness, a state where we lost touch with our higher selves and became trapped in the illusions of the material world. According to these teachings, the key to reclaiming our Atlantean heritage lies not in finding a lost city or rediscovering ancient technologies, but in reconnecting with our inner wisdom and spiritual essence. In this light, the search for Atlantis becomes a metaphor for the search for self, an inner journey of awakening and transformation. Just as the Atlanteans are said to have possessed the keys to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, so too do we possess the potential to awaken our own dormant abilities. By tapping into the wisdom of the past and the knowledge that resides deep within our own consciousness, we may be able to reclaim the lost powers of Atlantis and use them to build a better future for ourselves and for the world. At the heart of this spiritual journey lies the concept of ascension, a process of spiritual awakening that leads to a higher state of consciousness. Many believe that the Atlanteans were on the path of ascension, using their advanced knowledge and spiritual practices to transcend the limitations of the physical world. The fall of Atlantis, in this view, was not the end of the story, but a necessary step in the evolution of the human soul. The knowledge and wisdom of Atlantis are believed to have been preserved in the collective unconscious, waiting to be rediscovered by those who are ready to receive it. In the end, the mystery of Atlantis is not just about uncovering the ruins of an ancient civilization, but about awakening to the hidden potential within ourselves. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the past, we are also journeying into the future, a future where the wisdom of Atlantis may once again illuminate the path forward. The story of Atlantis is not just a tale of a lost city. It is a story of human potential, a potential that lies dormant within each of us, waiting to be awakened. As the search for Atlantis continues to unfold in both the academic and esoteric realms, we find that the story of this ancient civilization is not confined to the myths and legends of the past. Rather, it is a living narrative, one that weaves its way through modern cultural, spiritual, and even scientific movements. The mystery of Atlantis has become a symbolic journey, an allegory for the eternal struggle between wisdom and power, the material and the spiritual, and humanity's quest to understand its true origins and potential. This section will delve into the modern resurgence of Atlantis myths and explore how they have shaped contemporary spiritual and metaphysical movements, offering insights into the deeper currents of our collective consciousness. One of the most notable ways in which the story of Atlantis has resurfaced in modern times is through the rise of New Age spiritualism. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, thinkers like Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, and other influential figures began to reinterpret Atlantis not as a physical place that had once existed, but as a symbol of an ancient spiritual wisdom that had been lost over time. Blavatsky and her followers believed that the Atlanteans were part of a long line of ancient, spiritually enlightened civilizations that had existed on Earth long before the rise of recorded history. These civilizations, which Blavatsky referred to as the root races, were thought to have passed down their esoteric knowledge through secret teachings and symbols, which were encoded in the architecture, mythology, and spiritual practices of later cultures. For Blavatsky and other theosophists, Atlantis was not simply a lost civilization. It was a repository of ancient wisdom, especially wisdom related to the mysteries of human consciousness, the nature of the soul, and the forces of the cosmos. They argued that the Atlanteans possessed advanced knowledge in fields such as astrology, alchemy, and the manipulation of energy, and that this knowledge had been preserved in sacred texts and oral traditions. According to these teachings, humanity's descent into materialism, beginning with the fall of Atlantis, represented the loss of this wisdom, and the key to reclaiming it lay in the spiritual awakening of the individual. This spiritual interpretation of Atlantis resonated deeply with many of the countercultural movements of the 20th century, particularly the New Age movement. In the 1960s and 1970s, as Western society was undergoing a period of profound social and cultural upheaval, there was a resurgence of interest in esoteric teachings, alternative spiritualities, and the exploration of consciousness. Many people were drawn to the idea of Atlantis as a symbol of lost wisdom that could offer a solution to the problems of modern life. In this context, Atlantis became a beacon of hope, an ancient civilization that had lived in harmony with nature and the cosmos, and whose spiritual practices could inspire a new age of enlightenment. In more recent decades, the idea of Atlantis has continued to evolve, with some scholars and spiritual seekers suggesting that the ancient civilization was not just a metaphor for a lost era of wisdom, but a literal society that existed on Earth thousands of years ago. These ideas have been fueled in part by the discovery of new evidence, both in terms of archaeology and alternative research, that points to the possibility of ancient advanced technologies that were far beyond what was previously thought possible. Some have even suggested that Atlantis was the origin of much of the knowledge that later gave rise to the ancient Egyptian, Greek, and other civilizations, an idea that aligns with the notion that the Atlanteans were the original teachers of humanity. The resurgence of Atlantis in popular culture has also helped to shape the modern imagination. From science fiction novels to blockbuster movies, the myth of Atlantis continues to captivate audiences with its mysterious allure. Movies like Atlantis, The Lost Empire, and TV shows like Stargate Atlantis have introduced the legend to new generations of viewers, often portraying Atlantis not only as an ancient civilization, but as a powerful, technologically advanced society with the ability to influence the course of human history. These portrayals, though fictional, tap into the universal appeal of the Atlantis myth, a desire to uncover the secrets of the past and understand the potential for human greatness. What is particularly intriguing about the modern revival of Atlantis myths is the way in which they intersect with some of the most cutting-edge fields of science and metaphysics. In the realm of quantum physics, for example, some researchers have speculated that the lost knowledge of Atlantis could hold the key to unlocking new forms of energy, consciousness, and even interdimensional travel. Quantum theory suggests that consciousness and matter are deeply interconnected, and that the observer can influence the outcome of experiments simply by observing them. Could the Atlanteans have understood these principles in ways that modern science is only beginning to grasp? Some theorists believe that Atlantis was a society that had mastered the manipulation of consciousness itself, perhaps even using it to power advanced technologies or access alternate dimensions of reality. In parallel with these scientific inquiries, there's also been growing interest in the metaphysical aspects of Atlantis, particularly in relation to the concept of ascension. Ascension refers to the idea that humanity is on the cusp of a spiritual awakening, a collective evolution of consciousness that will allow us to transcend the limitations of the physical world and access higher planes of existence. Many New Age thinkers and spiritual leaders believe that Atlantis was a key part of this process, and that the knowledge and practices of the Atlanteans are essential to understanding how to achieve ascension. In this view, the fall of Atlantis was not a finality, but a necessary step in the soul's journey toward enlightenment, and humanity's eventual rediscovery of Atlantean wisdom will play a critical role in our spiritual evolution. This connection between Atlantis and ascension has been further explored in the realm of channeling and psychic phenomena. Many modern mystics claim to have received messages from the Atlantean masters, often during meditative or trance states. These messages, which are said to come from beings who once lived in Atlantis or from spiritual entities who were part of its advanced civilization, are often centered on themes of spiritual awakening, energy healing, and the unlocking of dormant human potential. According to these teachings, the lost wisdom of Atlantis is not something that can simply be discovered through archaeological digs or ancient manuscripts. It must be awakened within the individual through a process of spiritual transformation and personal enlightenment. This metaphysical aspect of Atlantis has become a significant part of its modern resurgence, and it plays a central role in the ongoing exploration of the mysteries of the past. Whether through the writings of modern-day esoteric philosophers, the revelations of psychic mediums, or the discoveries of cutting-edge scientists, the story of Atlantis continues to evolve and unfold in new and exciting ways. For those who are drawn to the idea of Atlantis as a symbol of ancient wisdom, it offers not only a window into the past, but a vision of the future, a future in which humanity may once again awaken to its true potential and reclaim the knowledge that will allow us to transcend the limitations of our material world. Ultimately, The modern revival of Atlantis speaks to a deeper longing within the human soul, a longing for something greater, something transcendent. Whether we view Atlantis as a literal civilization, a metaphor for spiritual wisdom, or a symbol of our highest potential, the story of Atlantis continues to captivate and inspire. It offers a vision of what humanity could become, a civilization that lives in harmony with the cosmos, one that understands the deeper mysteries of consciousness and existence. And perhaps, in the end, the true secret of Atlantis is not something that can be uncovered in the ruins of an ancient city, but something that lies within each of us, a dormant potential waiting to be awakened. As we continue to uncover the mystery of Atlantis, one cannot ignore the profound impact the legend has had on modern archaeology and the search for lost civilizations. Over the past few centuries, explorers, historians, and researchers have scoured the world in search of tangible evidence that could confirm or deny the existence of Atlantis. From ancient texts and maps to unexplained underwater anomalies, these efforts to uncover the lost city have sparked debates that continue to this day. But the question remains, is there any real proof that Atlantis existed, or is it simply a myth that has become entangled in the fabric of human imagination? Perhaps one of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from the work of Plato, whose writings in the 4th century BCE are the earliest and most well-known references to Atlantis. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato describes a powerful and advanced civilization that existed thousands of years before his own time. According to Plato, Atlantis was a large island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, modern-day Gibraltar, and was home to a sophisticated society that was rich in resources, technology, and culture. The Atlanteans, Plato claimed, had access to incredible technological advancements, including machinery powered by the Earth's magnetic forces and even flying ships. Yet, despite their grandeur, the Atlanteans ultimately succumbed to moral decay and were destroyed in a cataclysmic event, sinking beneath the waves. For centuries, scholars have debated the accuracy and significance of Plato's account. Some view it as a literal historical record of a lost civilization, while others argue that Plato's story was meant to serve as an allegory for his philosophical views on the decline of societies. In either case, it is undeniable that Plato's writings laid the foundation for the enduring myth of Atlantis. However, the search for tangible proof of Atlantis has led to a series of fascinating discoveries, both ancient and modern, that offer tantalizing glimpses into the possibility that Atlantis may have once been real. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Atlantis legend is the presence of ancient maps that suggest the existence of a lost landmass. Among the most famous of these maps is the Piri Reis map, a world map created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. The map is notable for its accuracy, particularly its depiction of the coastline of South America, which was not fully explored by Europeans at the time. Even more intriguing, however, is the map's depiction of the Antarctic coastline, an area that was covered in ice during the time the map was created, yet shows a clear representation of a landmass free of ice. Some researchers have suggested that the Piri Reis map may contain evidence of an ancient civilization that had knowledge of Antarctica long before it was officially discovered by modern explorers. Could this be a hint of Atlantis? In addition to the Piri Reis map, there are other examples of ancient maps that have baffled researchers. The Orontes Phineas map, for example, created in 1531, also depicts a landmass in Antarctica, suggesting that ancient civilizations may have mapped regions of the world long before they were rediscovered in the modern era. These maps have led some to hypothesize that Atlantis, or a similar civilization, might have existed in the distant past, with advanced knowledge of geography, cartography, and even the world's hidden places. Archaeological discoveries in various parts of the world have also fueled speculation about the existence of Atlantis. Some researchers point to the ancient city of Troy, once considered a myth until it was discovered in the late 19th century by the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann. The discovery of Troy, a city long thought to be the product of Homer's imagination, raised questions about other legendary places that might have once existed. Could Atlantis, too, be a real place waiting to be uncovered beneath the waves? One of the most famous underwater discoveries related to Atlantis is the so-called Bimini Road in the Bahamas. In 1968, a series of large rectangular stones were discovered submerged near the island of Bimini. The stones, which form a pattern resembling a road or wall, have been the subject of much debate. Some believe they are the remnants of an ancient man-made structure, possibly part of the lost city of Atlantis, while others argue that the stones are simply natural formations. Despite the controversy, the Bimini Road remains one of the most famous underwater mysteries tied to the Atlantis legend. In 2004, another potential link to Atlantis was discovered in the waters off the coast of the Canary Islands. Archaeologists found what appeared to be the ruins of an ancient city, complete with walls, columns, and streets, submerged beneath several hundred feet of water. The discovery of these underwater ruins led to renewed speculation about the possibility that Atlantis could have been located somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, not far from the modern-day islands of the Azores, the Canaries, or the Bahamas. While the origins of these ruins remain a mystery, they represent one of the most intriguing pieces of evidence in the ongoing search for Atlantis. Yet, despite these tantalizing discoveries, there is still no conclusive evidence to definitively prove the existence of Atlantis. Many of these underwater anomalies and artifacts remain unexplained, and there are alternative explanations for their origins. For example, the Bimini Road has been dismissed by many geologists as a natural formation created by the movement of limestone bedrock. Similarly, the submerged ruins near the Canary Islands could be the result of underwater volcanic activity, rather than the remains of an ancient city. So, what are we to make of these mysteries? Are they simply coincidences, or do they represent fragments of a lost world, one that may have existed in a distant past, only to be swallowed by the ocean? The truth may never be fully known, but what is clear is that the story of Atlantis continues to inspire a deep sense of wonder and curiosity. Whether through ancient maps, underwater ruins, or the writings of philosophers and mystics, the search for Atlantis represents humanity's eternal quest for knowledge, truth, and the possibility that there is more to our past than we have been led to believe. The absence of definitive evidence has not stopped the search for Atlantis, nor has it diminished the legend's power over the human imagination. Whether we view Atlantis as a physical place, a spiritual allegory, or a symbol of humanity's lost wisdom, its allure remains as strong as ever. The search for Atlantis is not merely the pursuit of a lost city. It is the pursuit of deeper truths about ourselves and our place in the universe. And perhaps, in the end, that is the most important lesson that the legend of Atlantis has to offer. As we come to the closing chapters of this exploration into the lost city of Atlantis, we are left with more questions than answers. The mysteries of Atlantis, with its complex web of legends, theories, and unanswered clues, continue to spark the imagination of all who encounter it. Perhaps, after all, the true legacy of Atlantis is not in the physical city itself, but in the ideas, dreams, and aspirations it has inspired throughout history. From ancient philosophers to modern-day spiritual seekers, the idea of Atlantis has served as a symbol of human potential, a reminder of what we could achieve if we rediscovered the wisdom of the past and integrated it into our present lives. In this way, the story of Atlantis becomes something of a mirror for humanity's own journey, a reflection of our quest for knowledge, enlightenment, and understanding. Whether or not we ever find the ruins of Atlantis beneath the waves, its message will continue to resonate through the ages, that our true power lies not in the material world, but in our connection to the mysteries of the cosmos, to each other, and to the unseen forces that govern our existence. The quest for Atlantis, in the end, may be the quest for something far deeper within ourselves. The mystery of Atlantis, a lost civilization surrounded by myth and speculation, continues to resonate deeply with our collective imagination. Its story, whether regarded as history, allegory, or spiritual symbol, speaks to a universal longing for something greater, a forgotten wisdom that could guide humanity towards enlightenment and harmony. The idea of a highly advanced society that fell into ruin due to its own moral failings serves as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. As the centuries pass, the search for Atlantis evolves, blending archaeology with esoteric traditions, science with spirituality. We are drawn to the possibility that, somewhere beneath the ocean's depths or buried in ancient texts, lies the key to a lost wisdom that could solve the crises we face today. But whether Atlantis ever truly existed or is a symbol of something deeper within ourselves remains unclear. In the end, the legend of Atlantis may not be about finding a lost city or unlocking ancient technologies, but about the journey itself, an exploration into the human spirit and its potential for growth and transformation. It is a story that will continue to captivate and inspire, offering both a warning and a promise that the true treasure of Atlantis lies within, waiting to be rediscovered when humanity is ready.